Have you ever wondered about the houses designed by famous architects before they became famous? Well, for Cairnwood, that's exactly what happened. Its rooms read like early drafts of some of America's most famous landmarks. Hi everyone, Ken here. Hit that subscribe button and let's explore this house. In 1841, John Pitcairn was born in Johnstone, a mill town in Scotland. In 1846, the family made the trip across the pond, settling in Allegheny, Pennsylvania, where an uncle had set up a woolens business. There was little money to live on, and John attended public school until he was 14, then left to take a job. He became an office boy for the general superintendent of the Pennsylvania Railroad in Altoona. The railroad in those years was the most advanced enterprise in the country, a school of management and technology disguised as a transportation company, and Pitcairn proved an exceptional student. He taught himself telegraphy, the highest technology of the age, and through the wires, he struck up a friendship with another sharp young Scot working the same system, a fellow named Andrew Carnegie. From there, the climb was steady and fast. He moved up to assistant to the superintendent of the Pittsburgh, Fort Wayne, and Chicago line, then to assistant to the superintendent of the Philadelphia division of the Pennsylvania Railroad. It was during this last posting, in February of 1861, that he was put in charge of the train carrying Abraham Lincoln toward the Capitol as the president-elect made his careful way to the inauguration. In 1869, still in his 20s, he was made general manager of the Oil Creek and Allegheny River Railway Company. That last job placed him in exactly the right corner of the world at exactly the right time. Western Pennsylvania was the center of the new oil industry, and Pitcairn could see the real money lay not in the railroad that hauled the oil, but in the oil itself. He built the Imperial Refinery at Oil City and involved himself in every stage of the business, from the wells to the refineries to the pipelines that were just beginning to lace the region together. Through a widening web of investments in energy, mining, and banking, his fortune swelled. The defining venture of his life arrived in 1883. That year, Pitcairn joined with Captain John Baptiste Ford, a veteran riverboat man with a passion for glassmaking, and several others to found the Pittsburgh Plate Glass Company in Creighton, Pennsylvania. Until then, no American manufacturer had managed to make high-quality plate glass at a profit. The Europeans dominated the trade, and ambitious American plates tended to fail. Pitcairn's company became the first commercially successful producer of thick flat glass in the United States, and the first plate glass works anywhere to fire its furnaces with locally produced natural gas. It was a marriage of his two great subjects, glass and gas, and it made him very, very rich. He began buying up properties in what is today Bryn Athyn, Pennsylvania, until he had about 500 acres. It was here that he would build his dream house, dubbed Cairnwood. To design it, Pitcairn turned in 1892 to one of the most admired architectural partnerships in the country, the New York firm of Carrère and Hastings. John Mervyn Carrère and Thomas Hastings had both trained at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, the most prestigious architectural school in the world, and they had absorbed its lessons completely, including a love of clear symmetry, of classical proportion, and of buildings that sat in graceful conversation with their surroundings. They were right on the cusp of becoming the legendary architects they are now remembered as. A few years later, the same firm would win the commission to the New York Public Library, the marble masterpiece that remains their best-known work. Cairnwood was among their earliest large country house commissions. Ground was broken in 1892, and the house was finished in the spring of 1895. What rose on the hilltop was a 2.5-story country house conceived as a French chateau translated into an American idiom. The walls were laid up in warm yellow Roman brick and trimmed with pale gray limestone, a combination that gave the building its cheerful, sun-like character. The composition is balanced and dignified without being cold, mixing rustic touches with high classical detail, and its ornament draws on a deliberate blend of ancient Greek and Roman forms with the lighter grace of the French Renaissance. The plan is shaped like the letter L, and the finished house held 28 rooms across roughly 26,000 square feet, with a small chapel tucked into a turret on the third story, as faith was very important to the family. Inside, the house turns on its great hall, a room that announces immediately that this was a place built for gathering. The ceiling soars a full 2 stories overhead, capped by a graceful barrel vault, and the space is anchored by a massive carved stone fireplace at one end, and an elegant staircase at the other. 3 sets of French doors open from the hall onto the south terrace and the long lawn beyond. The barrel vault is worth pausing on because it strongly anticipates the great vaulted Astor Hall that Carrère and Hastings would later design for the New York Public Library. In a sense, the visitor walking into Pitcairn's entrance hall is seeing an early domestic rehearsal of an idea the firm would later make famous on a civic scale. The rest of the first floor unfolds as a sequence of generous, beautifully finished rooms, 6 of them in all. There is a living room large enough to host a dance, a library, a music room, and a billiard room among them, each designed for the rhythms of entertaining that defined country house life in that period. The rooms flow into one another and out toward the gardens and terraces, so that a party could drift easily from indoors to the open air. The second floor held the family's private world, its bedrooms and dressing rooms fitted with window seats and small balconies that look out over the blooms and the woodland beyond, while the working life of the household, including the servants' quarters that kept so large a house running, occupied its own space within the plan. A house of this rank was never just a house, and Cairnwood was the centerpiece of a working estate. Carrère and Hastings laid out not only the residence, but a garden house, a stable, greenhouses, a wooden pergola, and a series of terraced gardens, while near the entrance to the property stood the gatehouse and the carriage house. The grounds themselves were entrusted to another celebrated name, the Boston landscape firm of Olmsted, Olmsted & Elliott, heirs to the tradition of Frederick Law Olmsted, the designer of Central Park. The talented young Charles Elliott worked directly with John's wife Gertrude on the planting gardens, and the result married formal gardens and manicured lawns to winding paths in the surrounding forest. One enclosed side of the garden, with its formal beds and a charming antique fountain, was designed almost as an outdoor room, opening to sunset views over the valley. Beyond the ornamental grounds lay the practical heart of the place, with orchards, vegetable plots, and poultry, along with a dairy that supplied the household and the community from about 1895 until 1948. In the autumn of 1915, John came down with pneumonia and never fully recovered. He passed away at Cairnwood in 1916, at the age of 75, still serving as chairman of the company he had built. Pitcairn's eldest son carried the family's architectural ambitions to an even grander height. Raymond Pitcairn, a lawyer and a businessman with a deep love of medieval art and no formal training as an architect, had already overseen the building of the soaring Bryn Athyn Cathedral nearby. Between 1928 and 1939, he raised his own home a short walk from Cairnwood, a neo-Romanesque castle he named Glencairn, joining his wife Mildred Glenn's family name to the family's own. He built it largely to house his remarkable collection of medieval objects, and today it survives as the Glencairn Museum. Let me know down in the comments if you'd like to see a video about it. But getting back on track, Cairnwood itself stayed in the family for 3 generations. Then, the family donated both Cairnwood and Glencairn to the Academy of the new church. The big house then stood empty for more than a decade until a careful restoration began in 1994, returning the interiors largely to their original 1895 appearance. Cairnwood was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 2002 and recognized as part of the National Historic Landmark District in 2008. Today it lives on as a cultural and hospitality center, welcoming weddings, lectures, and gatherings of every kind on the hilltop where it was born. It is a rare thing for a great house to outlast its family, its industry, and its century all at once, and rarer still for it to stay so close to what it once was. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. What did you like best about Cairnwood? Let me know down below in the comments section. And while you're there, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an exciting episode of This House.